Woo!
Hello,
Welcome in,
everyone.
everybody. Welcome in. How you guys doing? So, welcome into another podcast of Just Like Us. I'm
Just
your
like
host,
us.
Justin Bird, and this is my lovely co-host, Letty Zito. How you
Hi,
doing, Letty?
everyone. I'm good. How about you,
Woo! I'm
Justin?
fantastic. I'm a little under the weather today, but I'm here. I showed up, doing better now that I'm speaking with y'all.
That's right.
Welcome in. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about breaking generational cycles. This is a good one, y'all. This is a good one. I feel, because this one, changing the future. This is
Mm,
how we break them generational cycles, and
that's
we
right.
allow our future spawn to do what we may not have had and have the opportunity to, make some different moves and succeed in different ways and do things that we were not able to do. And so this is a really exciting episode to you guys. So thank you for coming in.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're breaking toxic cycles, and it can feel overwhelming, but it's definitely possible. So let's explore how to identify patterns, make conscious
Mm,
decisions and changes, and build a healthier legacy for the next generation to come.
amen, amen to
Yes.
that.
Okay. So
Yes.
we're recognizing harmful generational patterns, and by that we're talking about growing up we
Mm,
had a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of drugs, and there's a lot of partying, so to speak, in our generation. We didn't have
mm,
phones, and uh, uh, there wasn't social media and things like that when we were growing up.
right.
And so in our era, our generation, ladies, she's we're from the same era, and we all were from the same generation, same era, and our parents were pretty wild, to say the least. A lot of rock and roll. um, and there wasn't a whole lot of entrepreneurs and up and coming. It was more the 9 to 5, kind of
Work hard.
yeah, work hard.
Mm,
Your family's your family. The wife is more or less like the ones who were at home with the kids. A lot of times you didn't really have the mom's going out working. It was more like the fathers were out working, the mom stayed home, kind of thing. But today things are a lot different, and there's a lot more opportunity, so to speak,
mm,
at our thumbs. Just right there at our thumbs,
yeah.
we have um, a lot more opportunities. I want to pause real quick to double make sure we're actually on right here. I don't see anybody on. Babe, could you double check to make sure that we're going to probably come off this and jump back on? That's the best way to do it. You happen to hit that button that we needed, babe, in order.
Yes,
You did?
I did.
Okay, we're good.
So I saw one person jump
Oh,
on,
somebody.
but
So we're live for
one
sure.
person jumped on.
Okay, boom. So
There's
we are in it.
someone
We're in it
now.
to win it. Okay, cool. We're gonna keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
You
The
know?
the fun parts of being live, right? So okay, so the tools to break cycles and create new traditions. This is important because, again, like we were talking about, having the right tools is necessary for us to be able to execute for breaking these generational cycles. I myself, Letty as well, we are in a position right now to be able to break generational cycles by simply stepping up, showing up for ourselves right now,
Mm,
doing these podcasts. These are ways that are going to lead to us being able to potentially break these generational cycles. And it's important for me to show us. It's important for Lady to be
mm,
here,
that's right.
because I mean, who's gonna do it for us?
Mm,
Nobody's gonna show up and pay my bills and raise my kids. It's one of the things where if we want to do it, we have to find the ways and the means to get it done so that we can get the results that we're looking for. And in
yeah.
this day and age, it seems like there's so many ways to go. I think one of the things that's important to me is having a happy home, a happy heart, a place that I'm good with. Being sure that I'm
Mm,
good with myself, showing up for me, making sure
right.
that I'm able to be the best me, to break generational cycles. Because again, growing up, we had there was it, at times it could be toxic. There was environments in at least our home that there was drinking, there was there was partying all night. My parents listened to loud music throughout the night,
Mm,
but nonetheless, we had a great life. And I say it to say today's my mom's. It would have been her
mm.
65th birthday today, so I want to say shout out to my mom,
Happy
Annie.
birthday,
I love you,
Annie.
mom.
Love you.
What an amazing life we had. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it
Mm,
wasn't for the struggles and the strengths that we had as a family. So I just want to say thank you to my mom, my dad, my family, aunts, uncles, all you guys out there. These struggles turned us into strong people, and I'm excited to be where I'm at today due to some of these times that we had in the past, because you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And I say that because being homeless, the one of the most iconic things to me is the light switch. But I also don't want my son to grow up feeling like that. There was a point where I wanted to take him. I told him a story about how we lived in well, not lived, we ended up, how we went to Iguana City and stayed out behind the whole Highland Village with the homeless people out there. We traded positions with them, and it was impactful. And so, but I told Justin, I said, at some point I want to go and show you what it's like to be without, so that maybe you have a better idea. But I've also thought of, like, do I really need to go that route? Do I really have to go to the extremes to actually show him what it's like? And half of me says yes, half of me says maybe I don't. But there's a lot to learn about not having something. It's one thing to tell somebody, but it's another to actually live it and go through it, and not not have these things. So breaking these generational cycles, I think it is key. I don't want my children to grow up like I did. And I'm not saying anything bad about my parents. I'm just saying personally, like, we could have done without a lot of these stressful times and a lot of these exciting moments that I felt like we probably could have done without. But again, they helped chisel me out to who I am today. So it's kind of like there's a sweet spot there that I want to make sure that I'm giving my kids the life that I didn't have, and I have the power to do that. And it starts from within. So yeah, I'm extremely excited for this episode, because breaking generational cycles is important. And yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this issue. How do you feel about that?
Oh, breaking generational cycles. I mean, first we have to recognize, what a generational cycle is. It's like a toxic, thought or habit, something that we do repeatedly. And some of us were born into families. I mean, most of us these days are born into families where there are generational cycles we weren't even aware of as kids, right? It wasn't until we hit adulthood that we started saying, whoa, why do I keep doing this? Why does this keep coming up? And where does this come from? And then you find yourself in that generational cycle. It's thoughts too, right? It's not just our behaviors, but it's our thoughts and behaviors and habits that turn, toxic. Sometimes, you become that toxic person. I know I did. And it was painful. And I wanted, I too came from a household where there was drinking, fighting, there was poverty. We didn't have a whole lot. We had a home, but we didn't have a whole lot. And, I remember even as a kid, just like sitting outside under the stars, wondering what it would be like, to live like the kids across the way, right? Who had money, who, seemed to have it all together, had the nice clothes, and, but that's not what generational cycles are. They start from within, right? They are habits, thoughts, and patterns that are passed down from one generation to another. And recognizing them, right, in yourself, and then deciding, right? It's deciding to say enough is enough. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to keep passing this on, to myself, to my family, my kids, my friends, my community, and get brave enough to, finally break that, to start asking yourself the tough questions.
Right.
What is a generational cycle? Am I in one? How do I get out of it? The mere fact that, we're asking ourselves, what it is, and wanting out of it already invites the answer in,
Right.
And it means going within, looking within to get that answer, because it's already inside of you. The mere fact that you're asking for it is the answer is already there.
Right.
Right. And it's letting go of, for me, it was letting go of everything I thought life was. I had to deconstruct to reconstruct, right? I had to unlearn to relearn.
Right.
And so, what is what is one generational cycle that you recognized, and how did you break it?
Oh yeah, thank you for that.
Mhm.
So I'm the first person in my family to have graduated college. In fact, I think my mom graduated high school. I'm pretty sure she graduated from basic high school.
Mm.
But outside of that, I'm pretty sure I'm the first out of my brothers and quite a bit of my family to actually have
Mm.
graduated high school. So, but going to college was I'm quite certain in my immediate family I'm the first one to ever have gone to college and
Mm.
actually completed it. My mom went for stenography, but at this time in our life when she was in school, I think she might have shared this with
Mhm.
with Letty. My mom might have shared this with Letty that
Yeah.
I was in a lot of trouble at the time. You know, I was into thieving and doing, in and out of juvenile. So my mom going to school was really tough on my mom because she had to take us to school with
Mm.
her. And I say us by me and my brother Nate, me and Nathan. She would take to her to the college with her out there in Las Vegas, and we would get into mischief. You know, she'd be in there doing her stenography thing, and we're out there, getting into cars and like being troubled kids. So
Mm.
my mom ended up, having to kind of put it on the back burner, and she never ended up picking it back up because
Mm.
strictly, but I don't want to take blame, but I'm sure it had to do a lot with us being, so uh, um, curious and getting into things and stuff. But so for me, breaking generational curses and cycles, I wanted to make sure that I'm showing up for me and that I'm making the most out of my life. So when Justin came about and he was first, brought to this world, the first thing that I did was I got into college. And I wanted to go to school and to better my career. So for me, it was important to make sure that I, followed through with going to
Mm.
school and contributing to my education so that I can do better for my family. Because
Right.
me and Letty had just ended up meeting, and we were together, I think, for about a few months when I decided I was going to go to college, and I
Yeah.
wanted to go for robotics, which I'd already had in my mind, and already went to a school prior and was attempted to do the robotics, but they ended up closing it down for whatever reason. They didn't have enough students, so I ended up finding a school out here in Reno, and I went for facility maintenance technician, which had robotics, HVAC, and welding. And for me, it was exciting because I'm not only showing up for myself, but I'm able
Mm.
to show up and show my kids, what I mean, that I'm in
Right.
college. My daughter Brea, she was just getting into college as well at this time, and so, and this is 20 years after I graduated. I got into college. I got into the school like literally 20 years after I graduated high school. Yeah, it took a while, but hey, better late than never. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
again, I got a degree. I graduated, and I think for me, breaking these generational cycles started from showing
Mm.
up. Because that's half the battle. If you ask me, half the battle is showing up and making sure that I follow through.
Mm. Yeah.
Take notes, implement what I learned, and I did just that. I went to school. I graduated. I got out. My degree helped me get a job where I'm at now. But job is what? Just over broke, JOB.
Just over
I
broke.
don't want to, retire from doing this, but I do want to make sure that I am showing up for myself and showing up for my family and following through and continuing to be strong for myself because breaking generational cycles. I just learned something. Literally, we were out in
Mm.
California the other day, and one of our close friends, his friend I was introduced to, he'd said something to me. He's like,
Mm.
you know, if you really, really want to break these generational cycles, you're going to be the one that has to really put the work in. He's like, you may not see, and he's somebody that's very successful. You may not see, being able to kick back at home and not having to work. You might, he said, but really, you're going to be the one
Mm.
like building that foundation. You're going to be working a lot. You're going to be making sure that this is set so that your future family, your family coming underneath you, is able to utilize what you're setting up so that they are able to work from home
Mm.
and these certain things. And it really made a lot of sense to me. Like, so I had, I was like, okay, it's my job to make sure that I show up for my family to break these generational cycles so that they are able to be able to do something with their life and not have to go to work for someone else or have a job which is just over broke, and to be able to take advantage of right now, which is an opportunity wasted. I
Mm.
want to make sure that I'm giving my all so that my kids and their kids can focus on enjoying life, and
Right.
if I don't do that, there's a chance that this cycle will continue. And I
Mm.
want to be the person that does break this generational cycle, because it starts from me. I'm going to make sure that I give my family the best by me working my butt off, showing them what they
Mm.
can do. Nobody has to do anything, but here's what dad did. Here's what
Right.
your dad did. Here's what you guys should do. Work for yourself, show up, make sure that you follow through, love others, help others, and be honest about stuff. Because, here in our recent endeavors, it's not always glitz and glam. It's not always, smooth sailing, so to speak.
No.
I
It
mean,
isn't.
it's a rough road at times, but I feel like I'd rather work for myself and have some rough patches and be able to show up for my family, as opposed to continue the mundane 9 to 5 and keep going after, in a retirement. I don't want to retire for somebody. I don't. And so I feel like if anybody's going to do it, I'm going to. And right now is the time. So I'm breaking generational curses by showing up for myself. Let my son see. He sees us. As a matter of fact, yesterday, he mentioned he said something I didn't expect for him to realize, but he's seen what we're doing, showing up in here, and he listens and hears all the stuff that we're doing. He sees us coming in here, making moves,
Yeah.
doing these things. Hey, well, and so by us talking him through and letting him see what we're doing, it's starting to take its course of him seeing. If I asked him right now, he's right out there. If I asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I kind of planted this seed, but it doesn't mean this is what I want him to be.
Right.
But an entrepreneur is somebody who works for themselves, and he sees that us being entrepreneurs, it's not easy. We're working a lot. We're doing a lot, but we're also breaking generational cycles by stepping up to the plate for ourselves. Because again, if we're not going to do it, who's going to do it for us? It's going to continue those cycles of, partying, drugs, alcohol. And I'm not saying that's how it is going to be. I'm just saying, like, for me, I'm breaking generational cycles by stopping the use of drugs, stopping drinking, stopping caffeine, stopping nicotine, stopping cussing, several factors that are contributing to the continuous cycle of not being where we could potentially be. And that's, working for ourselves, gardening and reaping our benefits from planting the seeds. Yes, planting the seeds, eating the vegetables and the fruits that we're growing. And so it's a mindset. It's really it's new to me. It's foreign, but I want to be the one that's able to do this, because if not me, who else is going to break these generational cycles like us? So it's important that I'm showing up, because I'm a leader, and I see these little kids. I see my son. I see the impact that I make just when I talk to people, and I'm going to be the one that puts the work into dudes. And I realized just in the past couple of days, like, that's me, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Show up, show out, and make sure that I get the most out of whatever it is I'm doing, planting seeds and bringing it to my family, letting them see what we've been able to accomplish and conquer and do as a family. And there's so much to learn, there's so much to gain, there's so much to have. There's no need for us to feel like we have to get over on people or be greedy. Like, there's so much in abundance out there. So we want to make sure that we're honest, we're being cohesive to God. We want to make sure that we're staying in the light of God, and we're doing His work, because this wouldn't be possible without God. And the more and more I continue being sober and full potential me, like, the more and more I'm seeing how God's working in my favor every day. Like, He put me here. I was able to wake up, and I say this every day. I do. I literally wake up like I'm awake. I'm alive. Thank you, God, for giving me another day on this earth. It feels good to be able to have, even the painful things, even the things that but again, breaking these generational cycles starts from us. Again, who's going to do it but us?
Yeah. And I agree with that. I was thinking about this too. It started with my grandmother, rest in peace. She passed away in 2001. And she is the one who started to break the generational cycle. So I've been fortunate enough, right, to have somebody start it in my family, 3 generations back. And it was her reaching out to God. It was her faith that, she finally said enough is enough. She stopped drinking. She stopped smoking. She went around to all of us, before she died, and had individual conversations with us, about what her, what her drinking had been doing to herself and to those of us around her. And then the next came my mom, and then other family members, started to continue to break that cycle. And then there's me, I am breaking cycles of substance abuse, alcohol abuse, um, gaining financial freedom. I was a teenage mom. I was 15 when I had my first son, and I graduated high school. I got funny you should say stenography, because I got a scholarship to do just that, right? And it wasn't for what I wanted to go for. So I think it lasted a semester, but I always found better paying jobs, where I was working for someone else. And I remember thinking, God, there's got to be more to life than just, you know, um, working for somebody else. If I could do anything, like what would I do? And at one point, I thought about being a journalist, and here I am on a live, talking about some kind of heavy topics and heavy subjects. But to be able to see what one person who was brave enough in our family to say, I don't want to see this anymore, right? There's been enough damage caused. I want to have a better life for myself, and see my family have a better life for themselves, and to do that and then pass that on, to see it pass on from person to person to person. you know Now we get that opportunity to pass it on to ourselves, to pick
Right.
up the torch, so to speak, and say, we've had enough.
Yeah.
Let's break, some generational cycles, the thoughts. And it starts with thoughts.
Yeah.
We don't even realize it as kids, that all the conversations that we've heard, or all the tension and the drama and the chaos that we were a part of, affected us. It affected our thought process and the way that we viewed the world, and you know um, responded to it.
Right.
And I had to, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was, finally, literally it brought me to my knees. The substance use, the torment that goes along with that, the thoughts of just despair and turmoil inside and anger. You have to go through all these emotions, right? Instead of denying them, I was just trying to deny them and cover them up with being successful and always achieving. That's how I covered it up. But inside, these thought patterns were always with me.
Right.
They were always with me. You're not good enough. You're never going to amount to anything. And so I would go harder and try harder and do harder, and get up early, stay up late. Everything that I wanted, I went after, and it still left me empty, because you have to break those mental generational cycles. It starts in your mind first. And you know it's getting alone by yourself, and reflecting on where you're at, being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
About where you're really at,
Right.
and then coming up with a game plan for yourself. And for me, that was writing it out. That was like literally on a piece of paper. I had several notebooks where I just wrote out where I was at, why I was there, and what I wanted, how I wanted, where I wanted to be.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And even though I didn't feel those things, it's practicing, it's
And mindset.
practicing. Yeah. The
Having a
mindset.
mindset is very important. Right?
For me, I started practicing like something simple as smiling. And it was forced at first, but I would practice this like on my way to work. I was just so racked with like anxiety, guilt, shame, anger, grief. And I had to go to a professional job where I had to interact with people. And so in that time that I spent in the closet with God, talking to God and writing some of the stuff out, I would get what I would call little intuitive hits inside of me to do something. And it sounded strange. I was like, because I don't feel very happy, you want me to smile? Like, how do I do that?
Right.
So I just started practicing, literally just smiling on my way to work.
Right.
Or practicing not getting upset in traffic, right? I can't control the traffic. I can't control other people. I can't control certain situations, but I can control how I react or respond to them. And so, I would sit in traffic and listen to music, and I practiced, a lot of the times not reacting to people cutting me off. It's just kind of letting people in, or not giving them the bird when you want to. It's waving and saying hi when you really want to speed up. And it's practice. All of this breaking
It
generational
is definitely,
cycles,
definitely,
it's
yeah, practice,
practice,
and
and
it's a mindset. It
mindset.
really,
For
really
real,
is.
it
Because I
is.
mean, again,
Yeah.
we've been so conditioned to
Mm.
be a certain way. The foods we eat, the things
Not
that
just
that
by
we
our
learn.
family,
I mean, we're
you
in
know?
school, and like I feel like, in my opinion, it feels like certain things that are done as a child, we just kind of just
Go with it.
yeah, we adopt that as if
Mhm.
that's how it's supposed to be. Like school, going to school, I feel like this is just warming you up to be a worker.
Mhm.
And really, they're not teaching you how to go work for yourself. They're not teaching you how to make money, or even to really balance money. I mean, it's really about, going to work. We hear that bell go off. In my opinion, it should be a way to be trained. And, strike me down if I'm wrong, but I just feel like the school system is built to keep us enslaved, to keep us under wraps, to keep it to where, under control in a sense. So breaking these generational cycles, whether it be financially, emotionally,
Emotionally,
physically, mentally, all the
spiritually.
things that you can imagine, like, they really come and start from us within. And we want to make sure that we are, as adults, as parents,
Mhm.
the ones who's breaking these generational cycles, are aligned with our purpose, and making sure that we're doing what we need to do to break that cycle. Because
Mm.
some of us are just fine with going 9 to 5. Some of us are okay
There's
with
nothing wrong with
with
that.
with with
Yeah.
working until we're 65 and then going and have fun. I personally am not, because I see something more. I see something better.
Mm.
I have had a business for quite some time. I was into the drug realm, and I was able to work what I wanted. And I'm not glorifying anything. I'm saying I have been a businessman before, and I've seen, like, you wouldn't work for yourself. But what the one thing is that we're used to is just having that
Mm.
comfort of, like, knowing you have a 9 to 5. We know it's going to be there. I work for one of the
Yeah.
biggest conglomerates in the world, and the day this place is gone is the day the world's going to end, is how I think of it.
Mm.
But we got to start somewhere, break these generational cycles from within, and we can do it. We can do it. Not
We
every, like I
are.
said, it's not for
Yeah.
everybody. Not everybody's going to want to, break anything. So people are just fine, just like I said, just going until they are almost feeble, and to where they can finally relax. And I don't find that to be the way I want to go. So
Mm.
what we're doing right now, we're showing up for us. We're putting the oxygen mask on, making sure that we do what we need to at least strive to do better every day. It's wake up, do something a little bit different, make sure that we're learning
That's
something.
it.
And today is one step closer to what we're doing than yesterday, or at least a little bit. We're learning something every day, and making sure that we're
Right.
we're, we're polishing and learning, and we're keep on moving. Motivating each other, motivating
Mm.
ourselves. This little boy's seen it. My family, that's immediate. They're starting to see a change and a shift. And again,
Yeah.
last year was an
Mm.
impactful year, because
Mm.
I was able to clear a lot of things out of the pathway, and I think
Yeah.
those were huge milestones for me to be able to start this year off, hit the ground running, and showing up for myself. So
I would agree.
yeah.
Just the breaking of the thought patterns, for me was huge, because those things kept me enslaved. I was so concerned, right, with um the way that the world saw me, right? And then I started to get curious about how God saw me, and started asking him, and he started to show me. I started to allow his love to come in and show me we're already born worthy. We come here worthy. It's the world that tells us you need this type of clothing, you need to have this kind
Right,
of job, you need to have this kind of relationship, you got to have this, you got to have that to make you happy.
right.
And everything you need is already inside of you to make you happy. That alone is a generational cycle to break, just the thought
Right.
pattern, because
Yes.
it makes
Amen.
room for other thoughts to come in, and gives you room to grow, and to you know give to yourself
Right. Yeah.
and not wait on anybody else to give it to you.
Yeah.
Not wait on anybody else to validate you or tell you that you're good enough.
Now's the time.
Now is the
Don't
time.
waste any opportunities. Now stands for no opportunity wasted. And on that note, we want to wrap this up and say thank you guys for joining us on another podcast of Just Like Us, because
That's
we know
right.
that
Thank
a lot
you.
of us out there are going through some of the things just like us.
Mm,
So I think that you know, showing up for us is helping other people at the same time. And yeah, let us know if there's anything that you guys want to talk about in future, you know,
Podcasts,
and then let's make this happen as a family. So again, thank you guys for joining us. I'm Justin
Thank you.
Bird, Leti Zito. Until next time, we'll see you then. Peace.